All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are talking about something huge, a massive shift in global nuclear policy. We're moving from decades of, cooperation and rules to a brand new era of competition. So let's get right into it. And for the first time in more than 50 years, the world is actually facing that question. All those guardrails that kept the nuclear peace, well, they're coming down. We are heading into totally uncharted territory here. If you look back for decades, there was this clear path forward, right? One treaty after another between the US and Russia, putting these really crucial limits on the world's two biggest nuclear arsenals. But that's all come to a screeching halt. That whole era of mutual arms control, the thing that was a bedrock of global stability for so long, it's officially over. So you gotta ask, how did we even get here? Well, let's start by looking at the treaty that just expired. This was basically the last pillar holding up the old way of doing things. And this treaty, it was about so much more than just counting warheads. It was all about preventing miscalculation. I mean, think about it. It gave both sides the ability to actually go and do on-site inspections, to check each other's arsenals with real, hard data, instead of just guessing. It was this absolutely critical tool for building trust and making things predictable. And what's so striking here is just how final this is. There's no replacement treaty ready to go. There's not even a handshake agreement to stick to the old limits. The guardrails are just gone. We are literally in a world with no formal rules for the biggest nuclear powers for the first time in half a century. So, with the old rules gone, a new strategy is starting to take shape. And believe me, it is a radical, radical departure from the past. And we're talking about a document that isn't just a simple update. No, this is a complete rewrite of American defense policy from the ground up. It's all about reevaluating and reprioritizing U.S. interests in a totally different way. Okay, this chart really shows you just how sharp this pivot is. So the old strategy, right? It was all about integrated deterrence. Fancy term, but it just means working super closely with allies to deal with competition from China and Russia. The new strategy? It pivots inward, hard. Now, priority number one is homeland and Western Hemispheric security. And the approach to allies, it's called burden shifting. And that's exactly what it sounds like. Allies are now expected to pay up and carry way more of the military weight for their own defense. And it's not just the policy, The tone of the document itself is just as telling. The language is really populist, and it sharply criticizes those very alliances that have defined U.S. policy for decades. It doesn't frame them as partnerships, it frames them as dependencies. And this new strategy, it's not just words on a page, it's actually being built into new hardware. So, to put this into perspective for you, the backbone of America's land-based nuclear deterrent, the Minuteman III, is a system from the Cold War. We're talking about something first rolled out in 1970. It's basically an analog-era missile trying to operate in a fully digital world. So here's the crucial point. Even as the military is testing the old system to prove it still works, they're also deep into a once-in-a-generation overhaul. These tests aren't just for show. They're essential for gathering the data they need to make sure the whole deterrent is still credible. And the Sentinel, its replacement, isn't just a shiny new missile. No way. It is a complete modernization of the entire land-based leg of the nuclear triad. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the military's three-part system: land, sea, and air. So we're talking brand new silos, new launch systems, and all new command and control infrastructure. The whole shebang. And wow, is this program moving fast. The Air Force says it has purpose and momentum, and they're not kidding. They're hitting all these key technical milestones one after another. They're basically taking digital blueprints and turning them into actual concrete and steel, with the goal of getting the first missiles operational by the early 2030s. Okay, so a new strategy and new weapons. You can bet that's sending some powerful ripple effects across the entire globe. And this right here, this was an absolute bombshell decision. I mean, for more than 30 years, the US relied on supercomputer simulations, not actual explosive tests. So announcing a return to testing right as the last treaty expired, well, that triggered immediate and widespread alarm from pretty much everyone, adversaries and allies alike. Russia's reaction was immediate. They warned that walking away from these long-standing norms would totally destabilize global security, basically throwing the world back into a much more dangerous, confrontational time. And China, the country the US really wants to bring into any future arms control talks, urged America to stick to its commitments against testing. You can hear the concern there about keeping that strategic balance in check. But maybe the most dramatic reaction of all is coming from America's own allies. They're citing a loss of trust in the U.S. as a security guarantor, and because of that, they are now openly debating what was once completely unthinkable, developing their own nuclear weapons. This is a direct result of that new America First strategy we talked about. Okay, so what does all this actually mean for the future of nuclear policy? Well, here's something that might surprise you. Despite this radically changed environment, no treaties, new weapons, allies getting nervous, the official U.S. doctrine on how and when nuclear weapons could be used, it hasn't changed. It's the same policy from the first Trump administration. The policy is called strategic ambiguity. And what it does is it deliberately avoids saying that the sole purpose of nuclear weapons is just to deter an attack. By leaving the door open to using them first, even in response to a non-nuclear attack, well, the whole point is to keep adversaries guessing. And that brings us to the fundamental question of our time. With brand new weapons, no treaties, and allies who are getting really nervous, is the world entering a new age of deterrence? Or is it a new and much more dangerous arms race? The end of arms control, this new inward-looking strategy, and a global wave of uncertainty, it's all created a world that feels a lot more volatile than it did just a few years ago. The choices being made right now are setting the stage for global security or insecurity for decades to come.